Thandazuko Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Enkulu Yesa Thandazuko Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Gwenkulu Yesa Phezukwentab Phansi kwamafu Ebukhosi ini ake nibeke sisalindele sithandazela imvusele hello enkulu yesa uprofetiwe wokuphela uzotwali swangentumiso bantwana bethu bomemezela imvusele hello enkulu yes thandazukholwe Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Yale Sinyawe no Chandaze Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Kunino Chala Manjis Katsogufuna Tembulalele Imvuselelo Hello Kititanda Sukolwe Tembulalele
Hallelujah. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. God bless you. Welcome, welcome to daily prayer for our children. It's another week, it's another Monday. Hope you're well. Hope the family are well, most especially the children. Business, work, whatever it is that you're doing, I hope is thriving very well. Um, I think an apology might be due for yesterday if you were expecting to see the Digital Sunday Fellowship. One did not hold. Uh, uh, you see how I'm stuttering? There is a reason for it. But on the other hand, I was having a fantabulous time somewhere. So please bear with us. I'm sure by next week, God willing, all things will be back together. I personally was not around. I was being pampered somewhere by my auntie, so that it was not my fault. So I could just say that and put that disclaimer. But by God's grace, I believe all will be on track again. So sorry if you were waiting for that, and I'm sure you're waiting for this one as well. We saw her last month. We're back again this month together. We started a session to help our children. And I'm so glad that many of what we're receiving are not things that are too late for us to be able to implement. So we started with Sister Folakemi last month. We thought, I don't know why we always think that, but she and myself always think that we will start and we will finish her PowerPoints. And time has proven to us that that is not within our reach at the moment. So we will strive to do better. Auntie Cecilia, bless you, ma. Good evening. Archbishop in the house, God bless you. You're welcome. Anybody else that is there, but you're chosen not to talk, it's okay. God bless you as well. Thank you for being here. So, how to support our children that has additional learning needs, and we started with dyslexia, and we're going to pick it up exactly where Sister Falakemi left last month when she was with us. Again, as always, if you want everything that Sister Falakemi has done on this platform, you can see all of them, all her teaching, not biblical. But they are equally as important. Everything that she's brought to the table for us to help us with our children, their development, their growth, we understanding them understanding us. Very resourceful information. You can find a playlist for her on our channel, and I'm sure she's uploading them to her channel as well. So you either look for her channel or our channel. Don't think you won't find it with us, because like I said, everybody that comes to this platform, I give them a playlist, so you don't need to come looking or listening to anybody else if there's only one person you are looking for. So this evening, like I said, we're going on the second leg of the journey. I hope people are taking all this on board. I hope we're implementing all these resources and information that is coming to us in the comfort zone of our home. Please, please, I am begging. So I'm going to bring Sister Folakemi on, and we're going to jump right in and see how far we can get this time. Let's see whether we'll break the record. I'm not holding my breath, but let's see. Okay. Here is Sister Folakemi, everybody. Uh, Here she is. I keep saying here she is, but I'm not showing her. There she is, finally.
I'm
Hallelujah.
here.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
So, do you think we're going to break the record today?
I think we should.
Okay, I'm going to leave it in your hand then straight away, so I will not be the person that did not allow it to happen. So, as you have prophesied, we're going to embark on it.
Okay. Good evening, house. It's good to be back. Thank you for joining us. So, we started talking about dyslexia. I'm just going to do a quick summary.
Mm,
Good evening, Ma. Good evening, Ma. Thank you for joining us. So we said dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty. So it's specific to certain areas of learning, and it's neurobiological. So it's got to do with the brain, and it's not laziness, like I said last time. So dyslexia, the characteristics of dyslexia is difficulties with accurate and fluent word recognition, poor spelling, and decoding. Decoding meaning that looking at a word and being able to read it quickly
Mm.
and being able to recognize it. So it's it results from what we call a deficit in phonological awareness. What does phonological awareness mean? It's different from phonics. Phonological awareness means being able to manipulate the sounds in spoken word. And the easiest example I can give you is, you can say, if I say, what's the first sound in dog? You'll be surprised that you think, oh, this child is really smart. How come they can't remember it? It's because they find it difficult to process the sound and, retrieve that sound and tell you what it is. So basically, dyslexia is about deficits in phonological awareness, and in comparison with other abilities for the person or child, it's usually a surprise. So, and the other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this, was that dyslexia often occurs with other difficulties. So we call it comorbidity. Usually, children that have ADHD have dyslexia, usually. So there's a co occurrence. Sometimes it occurs with dysgraphia, it occurs with dyscalculia. Dysgraphia is the poor motor skills and handwriting. Dyscalculia is the trouble with numbers. So that's dyslexia. And we've looked at, general signs that can show us that, this child is likely to be dyslexic. We look from early years up until primary school. So we talked about, the young children finding it difficult to remember rhymes, finding it difficult to rhyme words. And I always joke that I am the worst person for rhyming. So usually most of us are on one end of the spectrum or the
Or
other.
the other.
Yeah,
Mm.
so yeah, I find it really difficult to rhyme. I just I when I was actually teaching, I used to have a rhyming dictionary in class because I could do the basic rhymes, and then when it gets to certain levels, I just can't figure it out. So yeah, we are all, some of us are on the spectrum somewhere. But yeah, so fluent and accurate word reading. So when that child remembers something today and doesn't remember it tomorrow, it's not laziness, it's not lack of attention, it's not lack of attentiveness, it's the fact that their brain has not processed it properly, so they've forgotten it. So so when you find a child that is always not saying the specific name for an object, for instance, if they can point to an orange, you obviously know he knows an orange. You can say the round thing. That's because he can't remember the name.
Mm.
So sometimes, yeah, the the other thing that dyslexia tends to come along with is working memory difficulties. Not everybody who's dyslexic has working memory difficulties, but quite a lot of the people who are severely dyslexic also have challenges with their working memory. So they can't remember things that you actually think, how come you've forgotten that?
Mm.
It's a working memory thing. So also things like I explained, using different words rather than the correct word. So if they want to say lampshade, for instance, they can say lamppost
Mm.
because it's the what lamp is there, and their brain hasn't remembered that this one's a lamppost, it's not a lampshade. So, and some of them appear not to be paying attention because their brains are working hard, trying to, trying to figure out things. Poor concentration, messy work. So that child that's always rubbing out things, they're probably dyslexic, mixing up their symbols, their letters, writing their letters the wrong way around, writing their numbers the wrong way around. And I did say that, when children are young, they do still get their numbers and letters wrong. But if it's persistent and with practice is not improving, then we can start thinking about, there's probably dyslexia or a difficulty. So yeah, basic things like that. When they're reading, they're hesitant with reading. The reading seems like stilted. They're going, the man went down the road, and it's not like they're trying to be silly or anything. It's just that their brain is processing the words really slowly. So hesitant and labored reading, and then comprehension. They sometimes they can read beautifully and they won't be able to tell you the meaning of what they've read. So those are all the sort of things that can, you know, that can show that, there might be this, the child might be struggling with dyslexia. Failing to recognize, common words, known words, good days and bad days. They know it today, they don't know it tomorrow. All of those are things that can indicate dyslexia. So we will start from slide 10 to look at what dyslexia looks like in a secondary school child, whether
Mm.
in the classroom or at home.
Okay. Hope
Thank you.
everybody is fine. I see a lot of people coming in, so this is
Welcome,
10.
everybody. This is 10. Okay,
Mm.
right. So, um, like I said earlier, when you look at this older child, I mean, you think they're more mature than in secondary school, and there's a large discrepancy between their verbal skills and their written correspondence. Now, a lot of dyslexic children or people have really good verbal skills. Like you can't reconcile this child who was telling you all the ideas with this child who can, when it's time for writing, is not writing or is writing so little. They would do all the talking. Like in class when we do role play, when we do acting and all of that, they're fantastic. They will do kind of what they will come out with when it's just talking. But when it comes to writing it down, it becomes a struggle. So there's a wide discrepancy, and people would sometimes mistaking it for laziness. So it's not laziness. The child is just struggling to make sense of what they need to write. Sometimes it's their brain is trying to process, trying to remember the spelling of the word, trying to remember which sometimes you'll be surprised. They'll say, "Oh, which letter is P?" And you think, don't you know? And sometimes we will get overwhelmed as parents and we'll think, what's wrong with this child?
Mm.
It's just because they have forgotten that their brains have simply not even studied the right way for them to be able to retrieve it. So a wide discrepancy between what they say and what they write. Let's move on. Can we have the slides back?
Okay.
Thank you, ma. Okay, so
Oh,
oh,
sorry. We're
let's
still
go
on the
back to
same
that
one.
one. We still
Yes.
have the same one. Okay, so some of them will struggle to grasp a foreign language and learn it properly, even though they seem to be talking, really well, and they seem to have all the, good ideas. They would just struggle with a foreign language because already they're struggling with whatever language it is they are reading. And by the way, dyslexia is not only in English language. It cuts across all languages. So it's not about the English language. It cuts across any language at all. It's the way the child is processing the sound and not being able to retrieve, the words properly. So mispronouncing expected words like, you know, say call a volcano a tornado, because
Mm.
mixing up, concepts that are similar
Mm-hmm.
but different,
Mm.
and pronouncing words in a funny way. Um, what's one word we used to joke with? It's just gone off my brain now. And it's really interesting. They'll say, if you say urinate, they might say urinate.
Mm.
So kind of,
It
that's
sounds similar.
it sounds similar, absolutely, absolutely, and taking so much time to get through their work, and I can't say that enough that they are actually laboring to do that work.
Hmm.
So when you say that child is slow, they are actually laboring to get the work done. So when don't even think about slowness. That brain is working ever so hard to get the work done. So when in school you would have done like 20 minutes of writing, and that child probably has only written their dates. Or if everybody else is written a whole page, they've probably written 2 lines. It actually looks like laziness, but it's not. It's not. They're just, you can imagine somebody who's mispronouncing the word when they want to write it down.
It's a
Then
struggle.
they start, it's a struggle. They start second guessing and saying, oh, okay, so what letter should I write? What's the next one? What's the
Mm,
next one?
mm.
So it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle for them. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one.
The next
Um,
slide.
no, let's finish this slide.
Okay.
I'll just quickly talk through this slide. They're slow to get jokes or understand idioms. So
Really?
they might probably take you literally. And that's quite similar to the children that have autism and all of that. They 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 might take you serious when, for instance, you are being
Joking.
sarcastic
Yeah.
and you're joking. And when we were young, we were quite smart with the sarcasm was heavy.
Mm,
Like
mm. Very
the
heavy.
adult would say, "Oh, put it on my head,"
Yes.
and then you would have some children that would actually make an attempt to,
Put it
and
on
then
your head.
you'll be really annoyed, like, what's wrong with this child? He says, are you okay? People will think, is this stupid? Do you think I actually mean that? But
To them, they
they they,
didn't know the
they didn't
difference.
know the difference. You have said it, and you have a serious face, then you must mean it. So
Wow.
things like idioms, I don't not idioms are not taught as much as they used to be.
Mm.
So it's to them it's a complete
It's a different world.
photo. What are you talking about? Yeah, comparing, you know, things with one another and things that are not even similar, or just saying a jumble of words.
Mm.
It might not make any sense to them. And the last one on that list is difficulty getting to the point when speaking. So they seem to talk a lot, but sometimes they might be telling you, recounting something, for instance, and they could go, aha. And then when we got there, aha. And then, for you probably have said that, probably have explained that situation in 2 or 3 sentences. And they go on meandering because what they're trying to do is to retrieve,
The
recollect, and do and
information.
the information, and give it back to you in order.
Mm.
So sometimes because they haven't stored that information correct, because the brain hasn't stored it right, so they start with the story and then remember something else and start talking about that. And then the whole story doesn't make sense. And how this plays out in the classroom is they start writing a story, and there's a focus. Usually there's a focus when they're writing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just get to the second or third or fourth line or somewhere, and then it goes off to something else. So we could be writing a story about somebody in a village, and all of a sudden they are on the moon or something,
Wow.
because they haven't, they're struggling to pull the ideas together and coordinate. So speaking or writing, they could just meander off into and go off tangent. So that's for written work. So in secondary school, they appear to know more than they commit to paper. Of course, there's poor handwriting. There's they lose their thread. Sometimes in secondary school, you look at the handwriting and you think, they don't know the difference between uppercase and lowercase. Why is there a capital letter in the middle of this sentence when it's not supposed to be so. That's because that's the one they remember. So if they're writing cat and there's a capital A in the middle, he probably at that point does not remember how to form his small a, or yeah, so he just written the big one that he remembers. So work can be slow, it can be messy. The punctuation and the grammar
It's probably
is
not there.
very poor. The grammar is poor. Like, the past tense is all over the place, mixed up with the present tense. You know, he went it. He,
Hmm,
all
it
kinds of
sounds like my
funny
somebody we know.
constructions.
He's went, he's go, he's come.
It's good.
Which one? Maybe that person had dyslexia. We don't know. God have mercy.
And then they, how we have just instinctively learned that, there's some verbs that have a different way when it comes to present tense and past tense. We call them, forgotten one, irregular verbs.
Okay.
You learn them. Go, come, went, all of that.
Mm,
They, they were,
that's too much.
whereas, you want to look at oh, I looked. For them, it might just not, it might just not sit well, and they will just choose a funny way, and you think, oh, how did you get there? So yeah, difficulties with punctuation and grammar, of course, spelling. It always becomes very obvious with the spelling. These spellings are a major one,
Mm,
and it's really very obvious when they get into secondary school. You think, oh, you should be able to spell was. Now, you would
mm.
not appreciate how difficult that word
What
is to
is?
spell,
Wow.
because it's an O, isn't it? It's
Mm,
not an A. So some of us, though the rest of us would have learned it like from being exposed to it, our brain remembers it.
mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
these ones are like, was, and they write was. And you think, you're in year 7, you're in year 10. What are you writing?
Mm.
Yeah. And, words that are similar, like, some. We have some apples, or I write a sum.
SUM.
A, yeah, SUM. It to them is just a puzzle. Yeah.
And it
And
sounds the same.
it
Some.
sounds the same, homophones. Yeah. Oh, homo. My teacher brain is gone. This is homophone sounds the same. Yeah, they spell differently. Yeah, right. Okay, right. So let's move on. Let's
Okay.
move on to our next slide.
Wow. There is a lot to take in.
There
I
is,
hope we
there
are
is.
taking note of all
Okay,
these
so
signs that we should look out for.
yeah, so confusing left and right.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, if my driving instructor that taught me in England was here, he would laugh. He'd say, "Oh, well, obviously you're dyslexic," because when I was learning how to drive, it was just very confusing all of a sudden. He'd say turn left, and I'll think, oh, where's left? So you can imagine somebody who's actually dyslexic.
Mm.
Mm. The difference between the left and the right. Actually, in most classrooms in the primary school, we have handprints on the board that says left and right,
Right.
just as a memory jogger for some of them. Yeah. Um, of course, difficulty learning foreign languages, finding the name for an object, processing information at speed for some of them, complicated questions can just throw them. When you have to think about more than one thing that's happening on the scene,
Mm.
they lose the track. Holding a list of instructions in memory for some of them, so that they can perform the task they need to do. They just not be able to retrieve all of the information, just like the younger ones. Yeah, let's move on. I think I've talked a bit about that. Concepts. Okay,
Whoa.
behavior. This is where sometimes the more quiet ones, it begins to show. They can either be disorganized or forgetful. And like I said last time, You can see where the executive function skills come into play. Disorganization, forgetful, um, forgetting their sports equipment, forgetting their resources for lessons, not being there for appointments, because they just can't remember, they didn't remember, and they haven't learned the skills to help them organize themselves.
Mm.
Because all of these things, when we talk about how to support them, you will see that when we use the knowledge from the executive function skills, we can actually support them appropriately. Easily distracted, they might find it difficult to focus on a task. Okay. um Missing where they need to be, wrong place at the wrong time, mixing up their timetable, all those sort of things. Excessively tired. I talked about this last time
Mm.
because of the amount of concentration and effort, amount of effort it requires for them to concentrate. So when you think, oh, but why are you looking everywhere? It's because they're tired of trying to focus and process and taking everything that's going on. So disorganized, forgetful, you know, just I think sometimes we used to, kind of find names for those kind of people and say, oh, we
Mm.
say professor this, professor that, or that kind of thing. Yeah, sometimes that's what's going on with them. Right. What's our next slide? Okay, right. Before I talk about this, I know I've said this before. They perform unevenly from day to day. So they might be really bright today, and tomorrow you think, oh, what's going on with them? That means that, you know, maybe when they're well rested, they haven't been too stressed, then they can focus. But when they're really tired and they've
Mm.
worked really, then the next day, it just seems like, what happened to you today? So, um, and I said last time as well, they might be the class clown, just clowning around. It's a mask. It's a mask. They don't. They're trying to, you know, distract from what it is they're struggling with. So they'll make everybody laugh, or they might be disruptive. So that this is where the co-occurrence with ADHD really begins to show up. Be disruptive and loud and just distracting the whole class. Or they might be really withdrawn. So it's a wide spectrum. They might be really withdrawn, and that's the difficult bit, because they could easily slide in between the cracks. And because if a child is quiet in class, it's difficult. Sometimes, if teachers are not paying attention, they can slide it between the cracks, because he's not disturbing the class. He does as much as he can. Usually, it's very little, and then they just get by, and then all of a sudden it's exam time, and they're not anywhere ready, because they've sat quietly through. So it's just one needs to be focused and careful about how are they doing, how much should they be doing, are they doing enough, are they not doing enough, what are the problems they're having. So they we call when dyslexia is assessed, we say they have a spiky profile. It means they're really good in certain areas and they're not so good in other areas. So when you have a graph, it'll go high, it'll come low, come high, go high, come low. So they have a spiky profile. That's because of they're good in certain areas, they're not good in certain areas. Oh yeah. So cluster of difficulties. So what do we do? If you think your child might be dyslexic, speak to the school. Now that depends on where you live.
Mm.
That depends on where you live. For those of us in the developed, in the what do we call us?
Western Hemisphere.
Western Hemisphere. We
You
can.
pay for that English.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm talking about dyslexia. I have my dyslexia brain. Yeah, right. So for those of us in the Western world, it's usually speaking to your child's teacher and asking for, the SCN lead and discussing your concerns. And um, you can never ask too early. Like if you have
Mm,
concerns, speak. If you have concerns, speak. It might not, it might be nothing, and it might be something.
true.
So if you've noticed anything, ask questions, because in the school, well, you have the professionals, at least people who have the experience of teaching and learning and all of those things, and
Mm,
who can begin to, if they haven't paid attention to it before, if you bring it to their attention, then they would look out. They should be able to look out and say, okay, is this right? Is it not right? In England here, depending on where you live, I live in Milton Keynes. For us in Milton Keynes, dyslexia is what we do. The focus for dyslexia is we call quality first teaching. So making the adjustments in the classroom to support
okay.
the child. Whereas in other boroughs, they might go, extra and do other things. And where I live in Milton Keynes, the diagnosis is not a big deal. If you want a diagnosis, a lot of people go to to go privately to have a diagnosis. It won't it won't be, it won't be a big deal to say, oh, you're dyslexic, because there are a lot of people that are dyslexic. The expectation is that the school will make the necessary adjustments so that the child can thrive.
Mm,
So it's making the necessary adjustment. And when we talk about them, you will see that, that they're everyday things. There will be those who are severely dyslexic that would need, further support and further adjustments. But with those who are in the majority, in the middle of the spectrum, not the extreme low, usually good quality teaching can support them, appropriately. So people go for diagnosis, so you can have a diagnosis assessment. Some people look at, getting it done privately. Some in some areas, and I'm sure in America, North America, usually they have psychologists that do
mm,
the
mm,
assessments,
yeah.
and they'll carry out a wide range of assessments, and it's quite a detailed assessment. You will do cognitive, you do behavioral, you do all sorts of things, and then pull together a profile for the child. So it's not one test, and there's observations as well to see, how do they write, what's their attitude to writing, how much attention do they have.
Mm,
So all of those things we put together to pro- to to put up a profile
mm,
for the child, if they need, because dyslexia is a cluster of difficulties. It's not just one particular thing, and it'll be different for every person.
wow.
Yeah. So, so when the assessment is done, you can tell whether, the young person is dyslexic or not. Let's move on to our slides now.
Next slide.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at supporting at home. So if you do go for diagnosis, and I'll backtrack a bit and talk about the diagnosis again.
Mm,
Now, because of the differences in the areas where we live, if for instance you're in my kind of borough where we don't do a formal diagnosis, and you want to have one, you would have to go private, just so it can help the child. Because I realize that even though they might not use it a lot when they're in secondary school, I find that most universities will provide the adjustments for every person who's dyslexic. They'll provide the support for them. Sometimes they even get them, an individual support, learning
Yes,
support,
they do.
so that they can help them take notes, because taking notes that
It's
we
a
take
big
for
deal.
granted is a big deal, because
Mm.
keep up
Mm.
they can't keep up with the pace. So sometimes they need someone there. For those who are severely dyslexic in secondary school as well, to take the exams, they need a scribe.
Yeah,
They
because
can talk. Yeah,
I
go on,
even know
sis.
that even when they're taking exams, even A level college kind of
Mm,
stage, I don't know
yeah,
whether they do it for GCSEs. They give them additional time.
additional time. Yes,
They give
yeah,
them additional time. That's the only thing I know, but I know they do take it seriously and they
mm,
do whatever they can
yeah,
to help. Now the only thing I don't know is whether uh, um, the examiners will be aware when they're marking the paper.
yes, yes. Um, there's room to make those adjustments. What happens is the student must have been having the adjustments normally in school.
Mm,
When the school is now putting them in for exams, they would put that as part of the application for the child,
okay.
and provide the evidence that in school we're making these adjustments for
Mm-hmm.
them. They've been having support for scribing, they've been having extra time, to do their work. So if the child is dyslexic, we should follow up with the school to see, are they putting additional, support in place if they are going to need it for exams. Because if they don't do it, then the exam boards will not let them make the adjustments.
Wow.
The school needs to provide evidence that they have been making those adjustments normally
Mm,
for the child, and then for exam purposes, it can be used.
mm,
So I mean, I feel that if the need is really severe, or if the need if you're worried and you want to get a diagnosis, do it, because it might help them when they go higher to higher
mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
higher learning. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so how can we support at home? The first thing is to help them. I like calling them differences, specific learning differences, and I explained that the last time, because when we say it's a difficulty, it gives the impression that for me it just causes to treating that. I don't know, it just gives me that. So help them to
EBGBs.
yeah, help them to understand their difficulties, that
Their differences.
their
I think
differences. Yeah,
it's
it's different.
nicer way
Because
of saying it
yeah,
than to say you are a difficult person,
yeah,
but to say that we all have our differences, which we do.
absolutely,
So I
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
that's
help them to understand what they're struggling with, and help them know that they're not stupid. That's
mm,
important. That is not stupidity that is causing the problem. They're not foolish. It's a difference in the way they learn. It's a difference in the way their brain has been structured. And listen to them and respect their needs, their way of seeing the world. So it's basically see the child, let them know that you see them as a whole, as a complete person. It's a difference, but there's nothing wrong with you as an individual. And we need to be flexible and responsive to their needs. Speaking to them, what works for you, what helps you remember, helping them discover, you know, and helping them identify how to modify things for themselves so that they can learn in the way that suits them. Okay, so help them to understand. Let's talk about what works for you. How can I support you? You know, how can we, do this to make it easier for you? Is it easier for you to do your work, first thing in the morning, or as soon as you come back from school? Let's study the child and find out when they're less tired, so that they'll be able to process properly. The trouble is many times we're so pressed for time, we're trying to do homework
Mm.
under pressure. Now
Mm.
this is the child that has had to focus all day
All
in school,
day. Mm.
and then we have this additional pressure of we have to finish this homework, or it's time to do your home, and they're tired. So you'll find that sometimes the child is crying, or they are refusing, or and then you think, well, what's wrong with you? It's just because they've had a long day. They've had to cope with all of the stress at school. So finding the best time when they're not as tired, or probably letting them rest before continuing,
Mm-hmm.
chunking the work. If they've done 30 minutes, 40 minutes, having a break, and helping them develop those skills as well, so that when they move away to university, they already have those skills. They know that I'll sit down at this time, I'm not as tired, I'll do some, and then when I start getting restless, I'll stand up
Mm-hmm.
and go and have a break.
Mm.
So let's move on. We're doing well for time. Don't laugh at me. So, looking at some of the skills that we talked about when we just discussed the executive function skills: a visual timetable, a calendar, how to organize their time using, or their school day, making sure they have their school diary or record, whatever it is, making sure that, they're organized, helping them to make learning fun. In the early years, it's easy. They're learning up even up till year 4, and so if they're learning their spellings, what you could do is modify the way they learn the spelling. Instead of trying to cram everything in their brain, let them use different colors of pen to practice the same spelling. Let them practice writing on, like, shaving foam. It could even be, a tray of sand or a tray of rice or something, where they can practice. What happens is, because their hands are writing,
Mm.
and their eyes are looking,
Mm.
and their mouths are saying the word, we're employing different senses, and
Senses.
that would help them learn better. So make it fun. They relate it to experiences. In early years, sometimes we'll give them a paintbrush and water. They can, can paint the word on the wall. Those sort of things, kinesthetic, just getting their brains working. So let them play an active role in their learning. Okay, making up mnemonics for the rainbow. I always go back to the mnemonics. Richard of York gained battle in vain. Red, orange, those sort of things help us to remember,
Yeah.
because big elephants can always something small elephant. So the words that are difficult to remember, let them
Mm.
use mnemonics. There was a program I used to use a few years ago, that for spelling difficult words, for the high frequency words, what what that program did was, draw pictures around the word. So if, for instance, it was okay. Let's give a common example. Writing the word bed, especially for children who are mixing up B and D.
Mm.
So this one end will be the top of the bed, the other end will be the bottom of the
Ah.
bed, and the
So
E
in
will be in the
between.
middle. So there's a
Okay.
visual reminder.
Yes.
So visual memory joggers, and there's a lot of things on the internet. You just need to search, and you can make up yours as well, so that they have many things to help them jog their memory and remember the word. So make learning fun. I mean, in the early years, have the magnetic letters. Magnetic letters are really good to help them do the visual, and kinesthetic because they're moving the letters around and making words.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of games. I mean, my dad taught us this when I was young. You have a long word like conversation, and then he'll give us a challenge. Make as many words as you can from the word conversation,
Sensation.
and you can only use the letters in the word.
Mm.
That way you're teaching their brain to reason and to and it's the best way to learn spellings. Making up, because you're challenging your brain to look through the letters
That's
and
right.
remember spelling patterns. So
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of ways to learn spellings, lots of ways, and that's one of them. Give them a challenge. If you have younger children, give them a long word. By the end of today, make me as many words as you can. They're thinking, and there's competition. Everybody wants to win. So make it fun. Have a word of the week. What does the word mean? How many can you write it in a sentence? Can you add an adverb? Can you add an adjective? Can you make it more interesting? So making learning fun for them, it would you know help encourage them to to not give up. Let's move on.
Okay. Hmm.
Right. Games. I've talked about that. Relates their learning to their hobbies and interests. Okay, so what do they like to do? Do they like my children are 20 now. I can't remember any of the in their days it was Fifi and the Flower Tots and Handy Manny and things like
Yeah.
that. Whatever it is they like, use those characters to help them, you know, to help them remember. If they like gardening, go and visit a garden center. Look at the names of the flowers, look at the names of the plants. Come back and write about your experiences. That's a real life experience. So it inspires them to write. There's a purpose for doing that piece of writing when we've done something around their interests. Cook together, talk, use the words when you're cooking. Okay, so we're going to weigh the flour. How do we spell flour? You can even put the flour on the tray and write flour, practical. That way, the brain is learning to remember to spell it. So, learning by experience and discovery rather than being told, like, like those making words, like little things that let them do an experiment. What do you think will happen? Did they carry out the experience? You come back and talk about it. Oh, so what happened? What did it grow? Did it not grow? Look, have books at home. You can buy a book of science experiments and do experiments together. I find that in class, these children that seem to be behind and dyslexic and struggling, when we have practicals, when we have like science practicals, they just take over the group. they,
Wow.
they know what to do. They are telling everybody what to do because it's practical. So make it practical. Let them have practical experiences. What do you think will happen? Can you give me a sensible guess? Buy simple science books,
Mm.
experiments. You would be
Mm.
surprised at how well they would do.
Wow.
Mm. And there's lots of science kits in the
There are.
shops. Yeah,
There are.
buy them. They won't be able to contain the excitement. Well,
Mm.
when are we having the next experiment? Hey, when are just simple things like so what do you think will happen if I put salt in the ice in the
Yes.
tray and freeze
Mm.
it?
Mm.
What would happen? Can we get the salt back? What can we do? The excitement, then you can talk about it at the end and write a few sentences about it. That's learning.
Mm.
That's learning. Okay, okay, help
Next
them
one.
build help them build up their knowledge one
Mm.
step at a time, step by step. So this happens first. There we used to teach what we called instructions, how to do things, even if it's as every day, you think it's every day, as changing the bicycle tire. If you've changed a car tire together or you change a bicycle tire, you can write about it. First do this, first do that. Even how to make a sandwich. Make a sandwich together. Let's write an instruction. What's the list of ingredients we need? Write the list of ingredients, and then this is how we made it. First we did this, next we did this. We're using language, we're writing, and we're making the experience, we're making it real for them. Okay. Acknowledge the difficulties, acknowledge the differences, and encourage them. If you as a parent have the can do positive attitude,
Yep.
then it will rub off on the children. But
Exactly.
if you are bemoaning your fate and comparing them to other children, it just won't work, because even if you don't say it in their presence, they can feel it.
Mm.
That they begin to feel like a disappointment, and no child is a disappointment.
That's right.
It's not their fault. So acknowledge the difficulties and let them know that we're working through this together. You can do this. You can do this. I'm here to help you. And you don't have to put yourself down. And sometimes they will get into that tunnel of really poor self-esteem. That's when we should be there to hold their hand up and to encourage them and to say, you can do this. Don't worry. You didn't make it this time. Let's try. Next time it will be better. Let's go back to our slides.
Wow.
Okay. Communicate with the school regularly. Let's not be those parents that get into the habit of fighting with the school. You,
The way you even said it, it was you were coming from experience.
I'm coming from experience. Because you have a child with special needs, you're going to get, or you have a child with additional needs, you're going to get emotional at times. You're going to get frustrated sometimes. So, but let's keep the lines of communication open. We can disagree, but we should not be disrespectful. Remember that the children are still going back there. I mean, if there's a total breakdown in communication, you probably should be thinking of another school.
Mm.
Yeah. So communicate regularly. Let's let them know if the child has had a bad night, if he hasn't slept well. Let the teacher know. So if he starts dozing off in class or he starts
Mm.
getting fidgety, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what is being diagnosed as ADHD is actually poor sleep. So if he starts getting fidgety and unable to sit still, they know that mom has said he didn't sleep well.
Wow.
So let them know if there's been a major change at home, it affects the children. We might think they don't know, but they go to school and things happen, and we start wondering at school what's going on with this child. So if there's a major change, if there's been a bereavement, if there's been anything, a new baby,
Mm.
it sets them off. So let school know if things are changing, if you've moved house, those sort of things. Um, they can get frustrated. So there can be frustration, there can be anger, there can be meltdown. So there can be behavioral issues when they begin to see that they're different and they're being treated differently. That's why we need to really work on their self-esteem at home and work with the school to ensure that they're being encouraged and not discouraged, that nobody's talking down at them. And don't allow family and friends to compare your children. Don't have all those competition where all the children are coming to recite five times table when the poor child cannot even remember what five looks like.
Mm.
And those sort of things set off
Mm. Mm.
anxiety
Mm.
and
Mm.
frustration, and at the end of the day they start having these meltdowns if we're not careful. It's not bad behavior, it's just frustration. You and I, if you are in the midst of your peers and everybody seems to be getting something right, and you're the only one that's not getting it right.
Yes.
You as an adult, you probably withdraw and start feeling sorry for yourself, but the child just probably doesn't have the skills to regulate.
Mm.
So somebody does something, somebody steps on them, psh, it explodes. So they can be very sensitive. So we just need to be aware of that. And it's natural when
Mm.
you feel that you're different or you're not like other people. Okay, I think there's one slide about school. I'll talk briefly about that and then we'll finish.
Okay.
Okay, so um a lot of the fonts we use, like Times New Roman, like all the typical fonts, are
Mm.
quite difficult for dyslexics to read.
Wow.
Remember what the Y looks like in Times New Roman. Remember what the A looks
Mm.
like the
Yes.
old A.
Yes.
How is that child supposed to remember that that's an A? So the open dyslexic typeface is really good because it emphasizes certain areas of a letter that helps the children
Ah.
remember it. Comic Sans is another really good one, printed and you can see it clearly.
So making it big
Making it, not necessarily making it big, using fonts that they'll be able to read easily.
easily.
Fanciful
Okay.
fonts might, distract them or might make them struggle to read.
Mm.
Next slide.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so I've talked about this visual, auditory, kinesthetics. They look at it, they say it, then they write it. So the senses are involved, and as the more senses you employ, the easier it is for them to learn.
Mm.
So make learning fun. You see, we tend to teach the way we learn. And what we need to remember is everybody learns in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are visual, they just need to see it. Some people are oral, they just need to hear it. Some people are kinesthetic, they need to practicalize, and we always encourage the kinesthetic because the more movement they do, the easier it is for them to remember.
Wow.
Yeah, so employ the different senses when learning, especially for spelling. Employ the three senses.
Mm.
So they see it, they say it, they write it. See it, say it,
See,
write it. Look at
see it,
objects
say
here,
it, write it.
write it.
See it, say it, write it.
See it,
Okay.
hear it, say it, write it. Right, next slide.
We've gone past the hour.
We've gone past the hour.
Okay, so
Um,
should we, because I have some questions that hopefully might help
okay, okay.
some of our listeners. Maybe we can pick it. I think we did well. From 10, we got to 20. Wow, fantabulous.
We did
so,
well. I think we
so
stopped,
next
yeah.
time we'll definitely finish the whole lot.
I mean, the rest of it is just examples
Oh,
people
oh, okay.
people who are dyslexic. Um, I've talked about multisensory approach using different senses, extra time in tests, taped lectures, maybe not taking that foreign language, note takers, audio texts. So the text being read to them. So there's lots of audiobooks now, speech recognition software. So they speak and the software types. So those are
Wow.
modifications that they can help. And they're not being required to read out aloud.
Mm.
If you're struggling with reading, you don't want to be embarrassed by somebody asking
Mm-hmm.
you to
Mm-hmm.
read. Okay. So doing a soft draft, multisensory approach, typing their assignments. A lot of children in secondary schools now who use a laptop
Mm.
because writing is difficult. So they teach them touch typing so they can do their work. So the rest of our slides is just famous dyslexics.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what do you suggest we do?
It's up to you. We can have a quick look at them and then do
Okay,
questions. Yeah.
there we are.
Oh, yeah. How many more slides have we got?
We're on 21 and there's 31 altogether, so there's another 10.
The rest is just a lot of pictures.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought it would be nice to just signpost the fact that there are famous people that are dyslexic. So
Okay. Do you want
undiagnosed.
me to?
Hmm,
But I think this one we're looking at problem associated with undiagnosed
hmm,
dyslexia. I think it's a
hmm,
big deal.
hmm.
Um, are you frozen?
I'm not
Y-
frozen.
Oh, okay. You're thinking what we should do.
uh,
Um,
because we probably won't get an hour from what is left.
okay.
Hmm. But I mean, we could always do do this and see if we have questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go with whatever you decide because what I was thinking, to be honest, I mean,
Mm,
like I said, what I'm looking at right now,
yeah.
uh I'm just flipping through so that they can
Yeah.
see some of the people, like you said.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Um, this is interesting, Muhammad Ali. So let's go back. So, but like I said, I think the problem associated with it, because I think my line of question
Yeah.
would actually have something to do with
With
this.
the problems. Okay. Right. Let's go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, because I feel like everything you are pointing out, showing us, it's so much predicated on observant
Ah,
parents involvement,
present. Yeah.
parents presence, okay, parents actively participating,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
parents actually not wanting to shelf their duty onto somebody else. This is
Absolutely.
the gist of what I am getting. Let me
Yeah.
take this off. And that's why I think the problem with not diagnosing it,
Mm,
it's such a big deal, because one of the things I've found, and you're the one that is the educator and been in the system for so long, but my personal experience with parents is, and they do the same thing in church, they just look for somebody else that will do it.
yeah.
They're just looking for somebody else that will do it. And that's why we had that problem during pandemic, and I'm sure you can speak better on this than I can, you know, um, where they're not used to getting involved in their children's education.
Mm, mm.
They know, I drop you off in the morning, I pick you up in the afternoon.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
it, end of story.
Yeah.
So this one that you are telling me to help with mass, look, did they open their laptop, did they log in this morning, did they do this, did they do that, all those kind of things. I've noticed that is, in fact, that's that's a sentence for some parents on its own. So, and this even, please forgive me, these are parents of children that don't have differences.
Mm,
Now talk about children that do have differences, which requires more involvement and attention. So, I'm seeing, I could be wrong, but again, you can correct me here. My fear and my understanding is, if we have parents that have nonchalant attitude, who are not willing to learn, who are not willing to be taught or corrected, then basically those children are doomed.
yeah.
Okay.
It's it's sad, but yeah, I think we need to, as parents, we need to decide what our priority
Priorities. Hmm.
is. We need to decide what the priority is. And when we have young children, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have any other priority. That job can wait.
Oh,
Because at the end of the day, I say to people, 18 years is like a
a
blink.
fly.
It's gone. Mine are grown up and gone. There was a time I couldn't go anywhere We knew the toilets. We knew every shop that had a toilet because I had to carry them everywhere. So, and of course, so we need to decide what's more important and focus on that.
Mm.
And I think the thing is not to allow ourselves to get overwhelmed by by what's happening around us. I know that financially, yes, we want to provide for them. At the end of the day, honestly, they'll be happier to have you than to have all the things you want to provide.
I'm trying not to comment.
Mhm.
I'm seriously trying not to comment.
They're trying not to come.
Um,
It's the truth. It's the
I
truth.
I mean,
Yeah.
please, 100%. I'm on board with everything you're saying. I
Mm,
totally agree with
mm,
you.
yeah.
But I'm just, and that's why I said, when you put the slide and don't fight with them, that kind of thing. I can't, because they just want somebody to solve the problem.
It won't work.
Exactly.
You are the first. You are the advocate for your child. You are the one. You
Okay.
know who's going to pick up things, and that's why I said, as soon as you notice things, go and talk to someone at school. But if you're not there to notice, if you're not doing their homework with them,
Exactly. So, and that's why I said, if we do not have active participating
mm,
parents,
mm,
those children are doomed. If your priorities are not, I mean, like you said, sadly, even as you were talking again today, I was remembering some behavior that I did automatically with my children. I'm going to say one, and I'm sure as soon as I say it, you're going to remember because you probably did it or it was done to you. Were you ever told to copy Psalm 119? See how you are smiling. Were you ever told to copy something that was really long? Why? And I remember I actually did it for one of my child one time. And as you were talking, the memory came back to me.
mm,
And I thought,
writing lines.
I did that automatically because it was done to me.
Mm,
I didn't I didn't evaluate it. I
mm,
didn't assess it. What did
mm,
it even accomplish?
It's that thing of writing 1,000 times. And if the child hasn't understood
Exactly.
what they have done wrong or why you are not happy with them,
Exactly.
so no correction has taken place. They've served the punishment, and that's what we used to call it, serving punishment. Whereas it's correction that nurtures,
Mm,
not punishment.
no punishment. Honestly, because there was a year I actually took children to camp with their church leaders, and some of those children were really misbehaving. So the attention of their church leader was called so that the person could attend to them. Sadly, do you know why? What the church leader asked them to do? I was so shocked. She found a scripture in the book of Psalms, and she asked them to go and read it, write it, learn it, and come and recite it. And I said, what a way to get somebody to hate the Bible.
That's not how I want to teach the
And that
scripture.
was punishment. That was punishment. We were on a children's
Oh,
retreat, on a camp, and that was punishment. And you couldn't find any punishment than to use the word of God.
couldn't tell
How do you
them
now
that how
expect them
Jesus
to
would
have a
have behaved in that
relationship?
situation.
So honestly,
Jesus.
like I said, some see it and deny it, or pray only. Okay, that's a good point. That's really a good point, Sister Folakemi. Yes, they see it, they deny it, and they want to pray
Oh
it out
yeah,
or
in
deliverance.
special needs, I think that's the major one of the major challenges we have with ethnic minority, denying, being in denial. Many times, it prevents, things from moving forward, or things from being put in place in time. Sometimes the mother will be on board, the father will be saying, no, no such thing in my village.
Mm-hmm.
In our country, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
dyslexia, they don't have autism, they don't have. But the fact is staring us in the face. It's good in the face. It's good to have faith, but it's what's going to happen to the child who doesn't get the support they need because somebody says,
Which is
you know,
exactly the slide that you wanted to talk on next,
yeah,
which is the
when
consequence.
the child feels stupid, social isolation, bullying, chronic stress, they can get into gangs. You find that a lot of the people, children in the correction facilities, they either have a speech and language difficulty, or they're dyslexic, so they find communication difficult, and they feel like school is just, they will tell you they hate school. They're at school with their friends, but they hate school because they can't understand what's going on. Everything is difficult. Mental health problems from all this pressure, headaches, dizziness, stomach ache, you know, anxiety. Now we have a lot of children refusing to go to school.
Wow.
It's a pandemic. We
Really?
call it emotional based school avoidance.
Wow.
It's got its own category of special needs now. And the councils are pouring educational psychologists on the case. Children refusing to go to school, mood disorders, depression. Sometimes it's just learned helplessness. Oh, they've given up. Oh, well, what's the use? If I try, I won't even make anything out of it. We don't
Wow.
want our children to get here.
No, we
So
don't.
if there's a challenge, let's pick it up, and let's pick it up as soon as possible. A child who, if you've noticed from year one that this child is struggling, it's going to make a difference when the
Of
support
course.
is put into place, not when the child is now in year six and they say he can't write SATs. We now
Mm.
start running up and down.
Mm.
What has happened to that child between when they started primary school and that stage? What questions are we asking at parents' evening? What do we know about
Parents' evening. That's
what's
interesting. Do they
what do
go
you
to
know
parents' evening?
what do you know about the reading band for your child?
Mm.
Like, if they're reading bands, why is my child on pink? What's the highest level? What's
Exactly.
holding them back?
Mm-hmm.
What numbers should he know by now? What
Mm.
should where should
Mm.
he be adding?
Mm.
Should he be learning this? Should he be learning that? Does he have the same spelling as the rest of the class? Why not? Is he sitting in the top group? Schools might not want to tell you, but you ask your
You have
questions.
exactly. Exactly.
Ask your questions and ask how you can help them.
Mm.
And there's so many programs online now that you can actually plug into and you support the children. There's nothing like reading with your children. Nothing can replace that. Children learn how to read. I don't remember distinctly teaching my children to read. We just read together.
I, I don't remember doing that either.
We just read together. I was still telling someone yesterday, when we moved to England, my daughter was in reception, a foundation two. Within one term, she'd read all their books. They went to borrow in year one, she read all of them. They went to borrow in year two, she read all of them. So I was telling
Mm.
my colleague, I said, hi, by the time she got into year one, hi, year one teacher was like, this child, I've got to do something. Where she taught her how to write, her handwriting. She learned how to join in year one. Up till today, she will write and I'll just go, me, I'm the teacher, but look at this child.
Wow.
Beautiful. So we need we need to be there and to ask the questions, because dyslexia is not a death sentence.
It's
Learning
not.
difficulty is not a death sentence. There's so many people that have, even the people with the autism that everybody's shouting autism. There are lots of people with autism that are doing very well.
There's loads of famous
Lots of people
people.
with ADHD doing very
Yeah,
well. So
yeah,
dyslexia is not a death sentence.
it's not.
So if your child is dyslexic, share all this. Google it. I mean, I put like 10 different people here, famous people.
Do you want me to go through them?
Yes, please. You know, Schwab it's a big wig in America, still. But he didn't even know until his son was diagnosed. Muhammad Ali, the teacher said he was dumb. So please don't allow anybody to put down your children or to call them names. Work with them. It can be done. There's so many of them.
Wow,
Look at
Whoopi.
Whoopi. Yes,
Even Richard Branson.
she was called retarded. Can you imagine? Richard Branson. Yeah, it's one of the most famous.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not a death sentence at all. Magic
Magic
Johnson.
Johnson.
Look at Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah,
Ugly Duckling, Little Mermaid, Emperor's
yeah,
New Clothes. Fantastic writer. Dyslexic.
yeah. The Emperor's Clothes, New
Yeah.
Clothes. Wow.
So these are things. Can you see?
Leonardo.
The gifted artist, a
Interesting.
prime minister. So
Wow.
it's not a death sentence at all. Right, so I've just put that there. I think I can send you that
Okay.
to put up on the it's a graphic I found online.
Please. I'd love
To
to.
put that
I'll
on
probably break it down,
the
and
group.
if
Yeah.
you have, yeah, it might be just worth something I'll put out on all our platform. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, you never know. It might just minister to one father, one mother, one uncle
Yeah.
or grandparent.
Yeah.
Honestly, like like that one that you said that is not a death sentence.
It's
It
not.
definitely needs to
It's
be
not.
repeated again and again. You know,
Any learning difficulty is not
it's
a
not a
death
death sentence, exactly. In fact, any form of disability or anything is not a
It's not.
death
It's
sentence.
not.
It's what you decide to make of it. Oh, so we have got to the end.
I told you, I said it wasn't long. I knew
So
we were nearly
you
there.
prophesied and your prophecy came to pass. Hallelujah. Honestly, again, there's so much, like our bishop said, people that are in denial, they want to pray it away, they want to do deliverance, they want to, I don't know, all sorts of things.
I don't.
You know something, Sister Folakemi, it doesn't matter whether our children have learning differences or not. I think every child, if we are attentive to just being parents and we're attentive parents, I think that will nail everything on the head.
It will. It will.
Just being
Absolutely.
attentive, getting
Absolutely.
involved,
Yeah.
not wanting to shift that responsibility to somebody else that's going to do it, actively, like some of the things that you've said about when they put them in color for
Color bands.
yeah, do you know what that color
Reading
means?
bands.
What color
Yeah.
is your child in? There was one tutor that said to me once, he said to me, because when they normally enter in year 7 after the 11 plus, sometimes they say they do an aptitude test or something,
they do.
and then
They do
they put
Cat
them in
4.
this color, whatever.
They do
And
Cat 4.
I'm seeing some colors that I'm saying, no, these colors are not wrong, and they're not right. He said to me, he said, you know something, you have the right to go in there and ask them, what is going to move my child from this color to that
To the
color?
next color.
And they have a responsibility to tell you. And then you ask them what I need to do, and you can be doing it to move that child from that color to that color.
Absolutely.
He said,
Absolutely.
honestly, again, if you don't ask, if you keep quiet and you don't talk and you don't reach out, but then you know something, I don't know, Sister Folakemi, I think sometimes the ethnic minority community, I don't know whether they're intimidated or they're scared of,
Yeah, well,
I don't know whether
maybe,
they
but
feel that they can't articulate themselves enough or
me,
they need certain
as far as my
uh
children are concerned, sorry, I will talk.
ex,
I don't.
ex
I would usually keep to myself, but when it comes to my
my
children,
children.
ah,
That's one thing I've never because I always feel that many of the times, whether they have learning differences or not, children can't always articulate what it is
mm,
they're feeling
mm,
or what they're going through, and that becomes my duty
too, yeah,
to step in there and to make sure that that child is heard and
mm,
that child is seen and
true.
what needs to be done is activated.
Mm.
But maybe that's another school on its own. I don't know. Because sometimes they think our own is too much.
But it's important. It's important. I've seen a lot of, neglect with parents not attending, parents' evening, father and mother, because, don't let the children need to know that, we are both, as long as there's both daddy and mommy at home,
Mm-hmm.
we are
Mm-hmm.
attending open evening, we're attending parents' evening together. We both hear how you're doing. Let's put up that united front. Let's be there. Let's be there for parents and ask questions. Ask questions. Don't just take so don't just take the word for it that, oh, they're doing okay. What does okay mean?
Me,
They're doing all right.
exactly.
What does all right mean? They're working at the level expected for the year. What does that mean?
Mm,
What does that mean? What can they do? What can they not do?
yes. I remember a head teacher telling me when I had that kind of conversation. It was even the CEO because he's one of those where they've merged the school into
Oh yeah,
whatever.
academies.
Yeah, was saying to me something like, your child is doing really well. It's only 0 point something below the something. And in this group, there's a lot of them. So because of that, we have to put them in other colors and whatever. And the way I said it, I said, you see that 0 point, whatever it is that you call it, to you, it's not a problem. Oh, your child is smart, is brilliant. Yeah, but I've heard that before because you can't tell me my child is dumb.
Hmm.
So, but the thing is, for me, if you've got a huge number in this category, and because of that, you have now got to divide them
Hmm.
into other colors. Well, why don't you make sure my child is in the higher color
Oh yeah.
instead of the lower color?
Yeah, I mean, we just need to be. I just remembered. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she was like, that she was just stressed. She said, I don't know what to do. Her daughter wants to study medicine, and I think the chemistry teacher had refused to predict the grades.
Grades. Oh,
And she
I
was
know the
like,
feeling.
what am I going to do? So I said, write to them and say, what, this child has always been, it's a straight A's child. So if you didn't pass that test, I am the guarantee that, And then when I asked her, she said, oh yeah, they pretend. I was like, praise God. What if she had kept quiet? That's how the child would have missed
I'm
the
telling
opportunity
you.
to put in for medicine. We can't keep quiet.
Quite.
That decision, it doesn't have to be final.
In fact, I think you're definitely a prophetess because I just wrote a similar letter last week and I got an immediate response. Immediate
You ask,
response.
you ask.
So, yeah. And that's why I said I don't know whether parents are intimidated. I don't know whether they feel it's not their place or they don't qualify I really don't know what it is. Because, in fact, if in all my years in dealing with teachers, I dealt with one 2 weeks ago and I said, no. I said, in all my years of almost 2 decades of dealing with teachers, I said, you're the worst. I said, you're the worst I've ever dealt with on any level. And I said, you have instilled so much. I've lost so much confidence in what you can deliver for my child. I got a long letter of apology and what I wanted to, because I just said, I'm sorry. They, they just came, she
If
just
we
came
don't
with this,
fight
this
for your
huge
children,
force of, I don't know, it was like a panic button. And I said, look, there's no need for panic button. We're working together. We're going in the same direction. We just want to make sure everything is on point. So we're
of
not doing
course,
lastminute.com. I don't want to get a letter 2 weeks, one when it's already too
before
late
the
and nothing can
exam.
be done. I
Yeah.
said, no. If there's anything that we all need to get on board, be doing now, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
person was like, I said, okay, you do yours. I know how to put pen and paper together. And that's it. And I always say, once it's documented, you can't deny that I
You
didn't.
can't. You can't. You
So,
can't. Yeah,
yeah.
write it down and keep the school the school calendar was always on our fridge.
Mm.
So you know when there's open day, you know when they have assembly, you know when it's sports
What's
day,
going on all the time. And the
you know
school is
what's
always
going on in
updating you
school.
with all the emails
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
They always
yeah,
are.
yeah.
Sister Folakemi, thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome,
much. We
ma.
can move on to the next one by the grace of God.
Grace of God.
So you prophesy. I will be looking at you with different eye now.
Don't tell Pastor that one.
I'm sure you already heard. So thank you very much. We're really
Thank
grateful. It's
you.
really opened,
You're welcome.
I hope he has opened a lot of people's eyes as well. It's not a death sentence. In fact, I'm almost tempted to say that's the title. Dyslexia is not a death sentence, honestly. So thank you very much for your
Yes,
time. I know
ma.
you've had a
God
long day,
bless you.
so I'm going to let you go. And
Okay.
God willing, we're seeing next week, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, by the grace of God.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we'll take the next leg by the grace of God. Thank you very much.
You're
Enjoy the
welcome, ma.
rest of your
Bye,
evening.
everybody.
See you. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye. So, everybody, as always, that is Sister Folakemi for us. I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you, I'm doing everything that I can to equip us. Sometimes I feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall, but something, I take courage or delight, even if it's one person that is useful for. If it's one person that is taking it and is running with it in the life of their children, my job is done. It would be nice if we can all do that. But if it's just one person, then that's one child that has been helped. So please take all these things on board. I'm begging you. Run with it, utilize it, get involved in the life of your children. Look for the telltale signs. Like they've said, we're going to be looking at another aspect of learning difficulties next week when she's with us. There's so much information, like she said, on the internet. There are resources as well. Many of these resources are available to us. They're not costing us money. Please get involved, tap into it, utilize it. Your children will bless you for it. They will become the best that God wants them to be. But, we can help them on the way to being that best in any way, shape, or form that we can do that as well. So I want to say thank you to everybody. As always, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. And I'm not guaranteed. Pastor Lydia has not come back to me, so I don't know what Wednesday looks like. But definitely, we have redeeming the time this Thursday by the grace of God. And then we got Pastor or Dr. Chudi on Friday by the grace of God. So you and I will see by God's grace, God willing, tomorrow by the grace of God. And then we'll see how the week pans out. All in God's hand. So everybody that is there, as always, I'm leaving you in is interesting, isn't it? Every time I want to say it now, I just remember Pastor Akimbo. So I'm leaving you in the most capable hands of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Have a wonderful day, morning, or night, wherever you are. Take care, and God bless you all. See you soon.
Thandazuko Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Enkulu Yesa Thandazuko Tembulalele Imvusele Hello Gwenkulu Yesa Phezu kwentaba Phansi kwama